Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Black-Liberation.Tech podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Renee Jordan, and today we are going to take a look at AI as your assistant. And for the sake of conversation, I'm going to go through one of the lessons from the Black-Liberation.Tech site. So you go there, you go to lessons, and the lesson I'm going to take a look at will be lesson C 4.2, taking one step at a time and staying persistent. And the reason I'm going to take a look at this particular lesson is because I got a couple of questions about someone who is entering into the tech field and wanted to know how to get started, where can they begin, and what are some things that they can do in order to keep themselves from feeling overwhelmed as a result of entering in a field that has so many possibilities, options, and opportunities. And so I'm going to demonstrate one of the ways that you can help yourself in terms of not breaking, let's say, projects down into smaller, manageable parts so that you don't feel overwhelmed. And I'm going to do that example and use my own personal interest and information in terms of things that I'm working on to help serve as an example so that when you look at the lesson, you can walk through it based on your information and say, well, this is what Dr. Jordan said, and this is what she's entered, but you know what? I'm interested in X, Y, and Z, so that's how I'm going to approach the matter. So to get started, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that those who are in my Patreon can see it. If you're not in my Patreon, then you will have to wait until I post it on YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn, and Instagram and Facebook. So I'm going to clean up my windows and open up a new conversation so that it will be ready to go when I am. All right, so I'm going to start from the home page. Go ahead and share. I'm going to share this window here. So this is the Black-Liberation.Tech homepage. As you can see here, I have my artwork that is displayed on my site. And so it gives an overview here. It lets you know that you can either search the website or you can explore the site as you see fit. If you're looking for something that's more structured, you can go to the lessons. So you can go to the lessons by clicking here, or you can go to the lessons by going to the top menu bar. Please note, this website also comes in Espanol. So feel free to make good use of that as well. So I'm going to go to lessons. And here we have the career lessons. So I have the career lessons built out. Feel free to leave me questions and comments about any of those. The next set of lessons that I'm working on deal with interactions. And so right now I just have this one lesson ready to go for the interactions. But like I said, we're going to go to a career lesson, and specifically this one here, taking one step at a time and staying persistent. Now, before I click there, I start off this series of lessons here with a story that was generated as a result of insights from my contributors, as well as prompt engineering done by me. And then the output was produced by ChatGPT, and I did some editing. So here we have Tia and Dominique, respectively. And so we're going to take a look at their conversation to get us started, and then I'm going to jump down to the other lessons. So here is the dialogue between Tia and Dominique. Story time. So here we go. Empowering digital futures. Tia and Dominique's journey from resilience to tech impact. Tia leaned back in her chair, her hands cradling a warm cup of matcha. You know, she began, her voice animated. I didn't always think I'd end up where I am today. I mean, I started off as a computer science major, thought it was the way to go. Everyone around me said, tech is the future. Tia, you gotta get into it. She paused, a flicker of frustration crossing her face. But when I actually got there, it was a different story. I felt so isolated. Barely saw anyone who looked like me, and support practically non-existent. Dominique, who had been listening intently, nodded knowingly. I get that. she said quietly. My path was a bit unconventional too. I majored in literature, believe it or not, and for a long time I was an executive assistant. People don't usually make the leap from reading Shakespeare to writing code. She gave a small laugh, her voice soft yet purposeful. But the corporate world felt flat. I needed something more challenging. Something that made me curious every day. Tia's eyes lit up. Curiosity. Yes, that's exactly it. You know, when I switched to business and digital marketing, it felt like I was finally tapping into my lane. Marketing, it's a whole different game. Creative, analytical, and so empowering in a digital sense. And teaching web development at my HBCU, that's where the magic happens for me. Dominique leaned forward, setting her latte down. You know, teaching, that's really special. I don't teach, but I do mentor. And for me, I wish someone had told me earlier just how powerful self-learning and community could be. I mean, I used to organize meetups for Latinas in tech. It was transformative. Watching young women walk in, unsure about pursuing a tech career, and then seeing them light up when they realized that they weren't alone. That's what it's about. Tia gave an enthusiastic nod. Exactly. Community matters. And you know what? Fear holds so many of us back. I used to be terrified of not being good enough. I compared myself to others constantly, but I realized we all have our lanes. You know, my lane is teaching beginners, making things understandable. And while someone else might be designing these super advanced systems, I'm here helping people take those first steps. We need all kinds. Dominique's gaze softened. I like that. Your lane, your strengths. It's funny because I used to feel like an imposter. Like, who was I, a literature major, to step into tech? But I leaned into my love for problem solving. Being a software engineer is about breaking problems down, seeing the creative side of code, and just staying curious. Tia tapped the table lightly for emphasis. Speaking of curiosity, you know what has worked for me? Being open-minded, like really open, not just to new experiences, but also to people. Sometimes the best advice or tech hack comes from someone you'd never expect. It's like swimming, she said, laughing at her own analogy. You can't worry about who's lapping next to you. You have to focus on your strokes. Dominique chuckled. Yeah, that makes sense. And for me, I always tell women, find your community and ask questions. X is a gold mine, and so are tech meetups. And even if you're an introvert like me, there's always ways to learn and grow. Online communities, webinars, they help so much. It's about being willing to reach out and learn from others. I can't stress enough the value of just asking. Tia's expression grew thoughtful. You know, that's one thing I'd like to tell the young women we're hoping to reach with this OER. Don't just learn for the sake of it. Build projects. Put your knowledge to use. It's so easy to get stuck in the cycle of learning without ever doing. And that's what holds so many of us back. Analysis paralysis. Dominique pointed in agreement. Yes, action. I wish someone had told me that too. It's okay to not have it all figured out. Tech is always evolving. I mean, even now, I stay up to date by working on side projects and following the tech community. But it's about taking one step at a time, not getting overwhelmed. They both paused, taking in each other's words. Tia's eyes shone with excitement. You know, our paths might be different, but there's so much overlap in what we've learned. Dominique smiled. Yeah, it all comes down to persistence, finding your community, and never being afraid to grow. We're proof of that. Tia raised her cup in a toast to empowering the next generation of women in tech. May they find their lanes, build their projects, and know they're never alone. Dominique clinked her latte mug with Tia's. Here's to that and to staying curious. All right. So that was the Empowering Digital Futures, Tia and Dominique's journey from resilience to tech impact. So now I'm going to take a step back and go to the lessons. So I can just close this because it opened up in a second window and go here to taking one step at a time and staying persistent. So here we have the lesson C 4.2. It is the finale, if you will, of the career exploration lessons. If you're new, just as an FYI, I generate these images and these lessons using ChatGPT unless stated otherwise. ChatGPT has an image generator, Dale E, that I use in order to get images outside of the ones that I draw myself. So the character drawings that are in the thumbnails of the blog post and on the about page of I'll just jump there real quick. And on the about page, these are drawings that I've done with my iPad and uploaded them. And my nieces and my nephews actually named the characters. My boyfriend named one of them. And so I think their names fit them nicely. And so here again is the lesson. And we're going to start with the lesson 4. So this is what I'm supposed to do. Reflect on the following prompts and write out your responses. You will use them later on in the lesson. So I'm going to take these and I'm going to copy them into a Word document so that when I get to the ChatGPT portion, I can simply copy and paste them. So the first one, taking one step at a time, not getting overwhelmed. So step by step, write down one big tech goal you have, then break it into 5 small, manageable steps. Enter how you will tackle each step without getting overwhelmed. Okay, so here we go. The one tech goal I have is so my one big tech goal is to create an open educational resource that includes a podcast, a website, social media platforms, and I'll put these social media platforms. Right now it's TikTok. That's where my largest audience can be found. And I'm going to say, if you're on TikTok, please follow me on YouTube, Instagram, and in other places. All right, so TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So it will include a podcast, a website, social media platforms. The next 2 levels will be a chat bot that provides advice and recommendations, and synchronous sessions. Okay, so the synchronous sessions, I'll put in parentheses, in person and live streaming. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to hop over to my Word document so you can see what I'm typing. Okay, so enter how you will tackle each without getting overwhelmed. So here are the steps I will take to keep myself from getting overwhelmed. So 1, podcast will be pre-recorded in advance. That way I will not feel pressure to get out new episodes. And so I actually started recording the podcast in November of 2023 and launched it using RSS.com as the distributor in June 2024. Number 2 is the website. I launched the website in 2022 and it has a note that it is under construction so that people know that it's a work in progress. I work on the website as I have time, at least once per week. Now, I'll just make a note that I'm jumping back to the podcast piece. The pre-recorded episodes publish automatically once per week. Okay? And then today is November 20th, 2024. And I already have episodes in draft and ready to publish through the end of December 2024. I record new episodes every other week in order to stay ahead. So I'm actually going to move this part up. Stockpiling episodes helps. All right. So I'm going to keep going. I'm just going to check and see. So as far as the website is concerned, I launched the website in 2022 and it has a note that says that it is under construction. So people know that it's a work in progress. I work on the website as I have time, at least once per week. All right. The next part of this big project that I'm working on, the social media platforms. My social media posts are clips from the podcast that are a minute and a half to 2 minutes. I learn from the engagement of the clips which sections of the podcast are most relevant to my audience. I then convert the most engaging clips into YouTube shorts to give people an idea of the podcast in hopes of securing more subscriptions. All right, I have social media. All right, I have not started the chatbot. My goal is to use the podcast transcripts and the lessons from the website to create a chatbot that will give advice and recommendations on academic and career coaching. And with that being said, I think I need to back up and say the purpose of the OER. So the purpose of the OER is to provide academic and career coaching, as well as lessons that will help individuals develop, use, enhance, and advance their technology skills with the help of prompt engineering to tailor their experiences based on their needs and interest. All right. And I'll put AI in parentheses. Advice. So in order to keep myself from feeling overwhelmed, I plan to use a platform that does not require coding to create the chatbot and will limit responses to the data provided. Okay. And then the live sessions / in-person sessions, I plan to stream live sessions as my schedule allows so that I do not feel overwhelmed by committing to a specific time and place. When my schedule permits, I plan to schedule in-person sessions in advance with requested audiences and once a month at a local library as my schedule permits. I'm backing up to the social media post, and I hope you see that by me going back and forth, that it's okay not to do everything in a specific order. It's okay to jump around. It's okay to fill in things as you think about them, and don't feel locked in and pressured that you have to do things in order. So the social media piece, I'm going to say by using clips from the podcast, I prevent myself from feeling overwhelmed because I always have plenty of content. The podcast ranges anywhere from 10 to 45 minutes. I think there's one that's almost an hour, but I'll say the podcast ranges from 10 to 45 minutes. So I'm never short on content for social media posts. Okay, so now I'm going to keep going. All right, persistence. Think of a time when you stayed committed to learning something difficult. How did you keep going, and what strategies helped you to persist? Enter ways you could use similar strategies to persist in tech. Okay, so when I was getting my PhD, that was definitely a time where I had to commit. And I'm going to type it just the way I said it. I'll clean it up. All right. While pursuing my PhD, I stayed committed to learning on my own about my research interests, my populations of interest, and the various qualitative research methodologies, methods of data collection and analysis. I'll say methods of data collection as well as analysis. It took me 7 years to finish. I was able to keep going by being highly engaged, by engaging in research and teaching that allowed me to learn continuously about what I needed to know for my dissertation and explored various tools, qualitative research tools along the way. Okay, I served as a GRA for 3 years and shared my research through at least 10 presentations, conference presentations. Through these presentations, I received feedback from my peers that I would also consider towards my final dissertation. I also served as a conference proposal and journal reviewer to see how others approached research and provided them with feedback. I also did it to stay up to date on what was happening in my field and related fields. So not just instructional technology, but education policy. I would also engage in special interest groups that fit my areas. So Black students, African American students, Indigenous knowledge, since I was interested in using an African philosophy. I also engaged in this way to stay up to date on what was happening in my field and related fields. Okay. Moreover, I served as session chairs and moderators to engage in scholarly dialogue with those presenting their work and the audience. What helped me to persist was to work on my dissertation proposal, I'll put in a sense and literally, over the course of time while working with others. I would use the literature reviews as opportunities to gather information that fit the nuances of my research interests, as well as address the purpose of the research that I did with my advisor. Because our research interests align closely, it was not a far reach to go from the presentations with my advisor, I'll say advisors, to my proposal. Those conferences prepared me to do my work and defend it at the end of my program. Okay, enter ways you could use similar strategies to persist in tech. I can use similar strategies of trying out new tools as I work on my OER. I'll say the OER. Along the way, I don't have to wait until a certain point in time in order to say, okay, I'm going to build it out, or okay, I'm going to publish it. No, I'm going to allow myself to publish as I go, get feedback as I go, modify it as I go, and allow it to be a work in progress. And also allow myself to evolve in terms of the technology that I use along the way. Okay, so I don't have to wait until I have everything done to publish the OER. I can work on the different parts as I go, learn new technologies to integrate as I go, include input from others as I go. I can allow it to be a work in progress. I don't have to have everything done before publishing it. I can work on multiple parts at one time and allow things to come together organically. So I will say this as a side note for those of you who are working on research papers, dissertations, thesis. If you're at the proposal stage, for me, the proposal stage meant the first three chapters, the introduction, the literature review, and my methodology. So although those chapters are in order, I did not have to work on them in order. And as a result of being exposed to so many tools, I allowed myself to narrow down what worked for me and what did not work for me based on my experiences in those conferences. I was able to present, I was able to share, I was able to get feedback, I was able to see how those different methods of data collection, data analysis worked for me or did not fit or suit my intended purpose, and therefore just thought about other things to use and do. And so another thing that I would do, and I've said this before, is that I would go to the prospectus and dissertation defenses of others in the College of Education. My prospectus, my dissertation defense, those were not the first defenses that I attended. When I got the announcement, I took a look at the abstract, the title, and said to myself, is this something that I feel like I can learn from? Am I interested? Am I just curious about what their work? Am I interested in their work? And so I actually attended both the proposal defense and the dissertation defense of someone who was in music education, and they used daughtering. And so as a result of experiencing her proposal defense and her dissertation defense, I was introduced to daughtering and adopted the use of daughtering for my dissertation. Okay, so curiosity. What's one tech concept or tool you've always been curious about? Enter how you plan to explore this curiosity, whether it's through a course, a book, or building something simple. So, one tech concept or a tool, one tech tool that I've always been interested in, curious about, would be a chatbot. So I plan to explore this curiosity by building something simple. I will start with a platform that, come on now, I spelled platform correctly. I will start with a platform that does not require coding, and I will limit the responses to the data I provided. If the user asks any questions outside of that, then I'm going to have instructions that say, hey, that's beyond what I'm able to answer. Feel free to reach out to Dr. Jordan directly or see if there's someone else that can help you better. So if the user asks for something outside of the scope of the provided data, the chat bot will inform the user that the request is outside of its scope. That way, it's not just making up stuff. And I'll put hallucinating. All right. Lane identification. What's something you naturally excel at, a talent or gift that could give you an edge in tech? Enter how you could use this strength to find your unique lane in the industry and how you might focus your growth efforts. So, I excel at giving direct instructions, phrasing instructions, asking clarifying questions, asking guided questions, and training others on how to use technology tools. A wide range. This talent could give me an edge in training others on how to use no-code prompt engineering to their advantage. It also gives me an edge because I'm able to prompt engineer lessons that include prompt engineering lessons that will allow the user to explore their own interests. These lessons can then double over to serve additional purposes. 1. The user becomes more familiar with prompt engineering in general. The user is able to modify the lessons for their unique purposes. And when I say their unique purposes, I'll give an example. So let's say instead of tech being the focus of this lesson, pursuing a PhD is the focus. So wherever you see tech career, you can swap that out for PhD or doctoral studies and modify the prompt so that they are geared towards your specific interests. You don't have to wait on me to create it. That's something that I want to get out there. So yes, you have my lessons as an example, but you don't have to follow it exactly. Let's say instead of tech, you say STEM. Let's say instead of STEM, you say the humanities. Let's say instead of humanities, you say liberal arts. Instead of liberal arts, you can insert whatever discipline, whatever field, whatever genre. If you want to turn it into prompts that help you write, hey, do that. But it's up to you to decide how you use it. Yes, I provide instructions, but they are not set in stone. They are really suggestions. And so these lessons, they're not a test. There's not going to be a test at the end other than an exploration of what you are interested in. And the test or the assessment is to see if the lesson is able to help meet your needs, help you to explore, help you to learn something new, and then what that something new is actually up to you. It's not limited to how I design the lessons. All right, we're getting closer. Because what's going to happen, I'm going to use this information from the prompts in my prompt. So to their unique purpose and interests. For example, instead of exploring tech careers, they can explore STEM careers or careers in the humanities or careers supported by a liberal arts education, law, or anything else. Perhaps they use the prompts to look into doctoral programs, and I'll put PhD, etc. on their own. All right. Non-tech related prompts. So I'm going to stop sharing there and I'm going to head back to the lesson. So pacing yourself. We're almost there. I'm telling you, this part is going to go faster. So I'm going to go back to my Word document. That is getting longer, but that's okay. All right. So pacing yourself. Think of a non-tech goal you work toward. Example, training or a race. Learning to cook, mastering a musical instrument. How did you break that goal down into manageable steps? Enter how this approach could be applied to learning tech skills. Okay, so I was in a singing competition, How Sweet the Sound, with my home choir, the James E. Jordan Adult Choir, and that's at Refreshing Spring Church of God in Christ in Riverdale, Maryland. And so we won the DC regional competition, and we recognized that we would need to improve our singing techniques as we got ready for the national competition. And as a result, we incorporated vocal techniques as well as the choreography that we would be singing until it became muscle memory. And so we had people who were skilled and actually went to school for music to help us along the way. So we broke that goal up into manageable pieces. The goal of going to a national competition by attending the regularly scheduled rehearsals that were twice a week until the competition. And I incorporated those vocal techniques. I practiced the choreography, but I also would not allow myself to yell or scream. I was a teacher and that wasn't my thing anyway, but I would not allow myself to yell or scream or strain my voice as I prepared, so that the progress that I was making through those rehearsals and the vocal training did not suffer. I also went to the gym. So that helped, because the choreography is one thing to sing, rock, and clap. It's another thing to sing and keep in time with choreography as you sing. And although the whole song, I think, had to be 4 minutes and 20 seconds or something like that, it was intense. And so those are the things that helped me to get ready for that competition. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and type that out. Now, what I'm going to try and do is see if I can start dictation. Here we go. So one of the non-tech goals that I had was to compete in the National House Suite the Sound competition. My choir and we won the DC regional competition, and we knew that the next time we competed would be at a higher level of competition, the national competition. Therefore, we took extra measures to rehearse regularly, twice a week, and we incorporated vocal training techniques shared by those who went to school for music. In order to help preserve my voice, I shared with my students that I was going to be in a national competition and could not yell. I also went to the gym regularly to help myself with cardio. In addition to singing, we had choreography that was intense, although the song was short. The goal of competing in the national competition was broken down into smaller, manageable steps by showing up regularly in order to get prepared. It also was broken into smaller pieces by incorporating more and more vocal training each time we met. I can use this approach to learning tech skills by continuously learning, by continuously using new technology, by continuously talking to people about the things that I learned and finding out what they know and exploring it for myself if it sounds like something that will fit my needs. I can also attend conferences and find out what is the latest and greatest in terms of research-based practices as it relates to the use of technology tools. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and clean that up a little bit. Okay, mindfulness. When you're feeling overwhelmed in your personal life, what activities or practices help you to stay grounded? Enter how these mindful techniques could help you pace yourself in your tech career. All right, I'm going to use this dictation tool. When I'm feeling overwhelmed in my personal life, I take a break. I also treat myself to a very good meal, whether it is tacos or a nice huge salad with all the fixings, a hamburger and fries, or even popcorn at the movies. In order to be mindful as I work on my OER, I can incorporate taking breaks from working on it so that I can give myself time to relax and reflect on how much I have accomplished so far. I've done a lot. All right, so this next question, write about a personal growth journey related to tech. Example, building confidence, learning a new language. What kept you motivated, and how could those motivations apply to your tech career? A personal growth journey for me could be my journey as a writer. That's something that I have worked on, I want to say, the longest alongside of technology. As much as I work on technology, I work on my writing. My writing serves different purposes, and therefore I have different styles for those different purposes. I do engage in creative writing when I am inspired. And when I do it, it's something that I cannot repeat, or I choose not to repeat when I am not inspired. I can use the thought of being inspired in order to be about those creative pieces when it comes to the OER. I can use those times to allow myself to flourish in that creative space with the technology. And when I'm not feeling creative and I've taken a break, but I want to keep working on something, I can use that time to work on the more redundant tasks, creating show notes for episodes and uploading them into the rss.com site so that the episode is in draft mode and ready to go. Another example would be cutting up the podcast episodes into shorter video clips to be posted on social media. By allowing myself time to be creative with the OER and allowing myself time to do redundant things like editing video, I'm able to continue to work on the OER and push it forward without always relying on being inspired to work on it. There are some fundamental things that I can do in order to keep moving. And by incorporating the new technology tools that I learn along the way, I'm able to continue to expand my technical skills and upgrade the OER as I go. I told you this part was going to move faster. Okay, resilience. Describe a moment when you experienced failure or setbacks in a non-tech context. How did you handle it and keep going? Enter how this experience strengthened your persistence and how you could apply that same resilience to pursuing tech goals. Okay. So a time that I experienced failure would be a time when I was filling in for one of the choir directors for the youth choir. And we were at an evening service, and the song that I worked on with the young people, if not the week before, maybe 2 weeks before, but it was recent, was one of the songs that we were going to sing at the evening service. Now, the song is a Ricky Dillard song, and it's one that has a break where the singers go off and they sing different parts. So the sopranos have their part, the altos have their part, and the tenors have their part. And when I got up there, it was as if we had not sung the song in months. And so I stopped and I started over, and then I stopped and I started over again. And I want to say I gave it a third try, and these young people, they just didn't remember it. And so I just said, okay, that's enough. Time out. Let's sing something else. And so I stepped away, I took a breath, and I collected myself. And then I came back to the choir and sung with the young people as they did the rest of their selections. And so that experience, that setback, I'll call it, allowed me to see that it's okay to keep going when things don't work out. It's also okay if things don't work out. Sometimes things just don't work out. And I did not hold it against the young people. Instead, I recognized that that song was very complicated, and a part of the success with the song before was that we got to practice it the day before. So it was fresh in their minds. And so I did what my mom would say, which was just keep showing up, keep showing up. That was her advice. And so I did. And I was able to have other opportunities to work with the young people and to direct them and to experience success with them in terms of delivering the song just as well as they did in rehearsal. This experience strengthened my persistence because I understand that things don't always go your way, comma. I understand that stuff happens, comma. I understand that life happens, comma. I understand that it's possible to do something really, really good one time. And because of the amount of time or space that elapses from that moment of success, you can try it again and it just not work as well. And it could be no fault of your own. It just happens. So I can apply this same resilience while I pursue tech by knowing sometimes things don't just work out the way you want them to. And that's okay. I'm showing up, doing these lives, and I can see that people are popping in and out, but they're not quite staying. And that's okay, period. Because this is practice for me. And so, like my mom said, I'm going to keep showing up. And nothing is lost. Because not only is it good practice, it's also allowing me to record content at the same time. The content for my podcast, the content for my social media posts, and the content for what will become the chatbot. All right. So that is the end of those prompts and questions.